Hi.
Hello.
Hey there. Hey.
Hi.
Hey.
How are you?
Hi. Tuesday morning.
Tuesday. What was
So
the
nice.
What was the full fucking line? Good morning. Sunday morning.
Sunday morning.
I thought it was Saturday morning.
Sunday morning.
I think it was. I forget what day it was.
Hey, what's up? Welcome. Come on in. Thanks for joining us. This is Spine Crackers.
This is the cozy ASMR book club, where we
Yeah.
talk about books that we've read recently, and
We talk
You
about
know,
Harry Potter.
maybe sip on a little bit of wine.
and get a little, get
you know,
a
you're so
glass
bad.
in, and maybe I'll say a cuss word.
Get into our feelings and experiences of the book that we just read.
And before you know it, the book isn't even sort of part of the discussion, and
just
we're
sort of
all just sort of
becomes
talking
about-
about bad
our-
relationships.
and
our children we hate.
and life, you know, we talk about life a lot here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's really what reading's for. It's for avoiding the topic that we just, in this sense, with a very grim book we read that we're going to be talking about. I don't want to. I don't want
All
to
right,
maintain
yeah,
this
done.
tone.
All right, yeah. We're done.
Yeah, you got stuck. You got stuck.
Matt was stun locked.
Like a quagmire was starting. I was like, yeah, we're going to talk about.
Oh, by the way, this is the Spine Crackers podcast.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, and I'm Paul.
I'm Gabe.
I'm Matt. Today,
And we're here to talk about fucking books.
We're fucking men. That's not our. Those weren't our real voices. At
No,
all.
Yeah.
that was definitely not my fucking real voice.
This is the way I really talk.
yeah, we're not drinking wine. We're drinking bourbon, and it's cool. And it's like that dad that had bullets that he used to chill in the freezer, and then he would cool the bourbon with bullets. Did you ever see that?
Yes.
No, that sounds really cool though.
It's the most manly shit I ever saw.
Well, that's kind of a hot, or it was a hot thing for a while, like steel ice cubes that you just yeah, that was very popular. No, dude, listen, we're not drinking fucking wine. We're drinking truly classic lime margarita seltzers.
Because beer gets me a little bit gaseous
Just
and
a
I can't
little
get to
bit-
sleep.
Yeah.
A little bit fucking bloated, and it gives me more heartburn.
And then I'm a little cranky when I have to code the next day. My hands are soft, they've never known toil.
Suddenly making fun of Silicon Valley dads.
I rake leaves once a season and I have blisters all over my hands. I actually do. I shovel snow. Every time I shovel snow, I get blisters immediately.
Do you not wear gloves?
I'm not some horny-handed son of toil.
Okay, that's Chad. That's Chad.
I actually don't wear gloves all winter.
I just
like
don't
them.
have any. Yeah,
I'm not-
and it is bad
I just-
sometimes.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of pockets.
I gotta get a good pair of gloves.
Because in a lot
Anyway,
of
Anyway,
the book, this book takes place
Speaking of
over
winter.
seasons. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's even though this book technically takes place over I think a full year and a full round of seasonal changes.
Yeah.
It's predominantly a cold month sort of winter book.
Well, because
And
it's in a cold part of the world. It seems like mostly.
Poland.
Yeah, it's Poland on the close to the Czech border.
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. We
And
should
of
probably
course-
say what fucking book we're. Yeah, you're about to do
Yeah.
it. Sorry, you were about to do it.
Okay. Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead by Olga Tokarczuk.
Nobel
what we're
Prize
talking about.
winner.
Recent Nobel Prize winner.
Hype beast. I feel like the last couple months Tokarczuk has been like the fucking, I don't know, some like Kanye drop sneakers from Nike. The books of Jacob has just been blowing up my Instagram and book Twitter and all that shit. So I think Tokarczuk, at least recently, is a little bit of a hype beast author.
Yeah.
Well, you win the Nobel Prize, and
Well, it's which by the way, I'm calling you out, BookTube and Book Twitter and book all you book motherfuckers.
oh, do it.
You're
Gobsmack 'em.
you're always these awards don't fucking matter. Fuck the awards. I don't give a shit. I'm just gonna read fucking Milton until I die. I don't give a fuck about the awards. Tokarczuk wins the Nobel Prize and releases a big fat book, and now you're fucking hype beasting, dude. You're soy facing hard.
Yeah, not like us. We were there since the beginning.
Yeah.
Exactly, dude. OGs.
Yeah. But where does this land in her output? I didn't actually look that up.
I don't know, but it came out in 2009 originally in Polish, and so we have the 2018 English translation by Antonia Lloyd-Jones. Shout out.
Yeah.
So let's see. I feel like
Because Tokarczuk is, obviously it takes a little time with these kind of things to make her way over here, even though I think she's been quite well known and famous. I could also be wrong.
this
but
was her most recent book before Books of Jacob, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Right. But even the Book of Jacob was at
Books,
in Poland in like
books,
2015.
Dude, don't get it twisted. Books
of Jacob you're right. Was in 2015
14.
before it even got here.
Which is now so fucking 8 years.
Yeah, quite a delay.
Yeah, the translation drama is real.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I describe why I like it and why I picked it?
Why'd you take it?
What do we
So
do?
you do like it as spoiler?
You're burying the lead. Yeah, spoilers, dude. Yeah, so this is Matt's pick, and yeah, so he's gonna do what he just said.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm feeling a little punchy this evening. I'm hype. I'm feeling joyful.
No, it's good.
Yeah,
That is good.
Spontaneous joy.
Are you feeling punchy like if Tokarczuk like slapped Blake at the Nobel Prize convention? That kind of punchy?
Definitely keep us topical.
yes,
That's good.
That's epic. Yeah, no,
We're about to discourse about that.
That's right.
I really picked it for super I actually had no idea about Tokarczuk, and I didn't even I wasn't aware that she was even about to win the Nobel Prize beforehand, and it just so happened that she did.
No, she won the Nobel Prize in what do you mean, 2018 or some shit?
Or I mean that the translation of the big book that everyone was talking about.
Oh, the
I
book,
guess.
yeah, Books of Jacob, yeah.
And when everyone was hype, it
Matt,
just so
you're
happens.
a hype beast, dude. Admit it.
Well, I am, because I was as soon as that started going around, I was like, oh, my girlfriend had recently read it for her own book club, and so I just had a copy, and I was like, why not?
This book, right?
Yeah, this book.
Okay.
So why not just throw it on the list? I was interested suddenly because I'm a bandwagon bitch.
Because you're a hype beast.
And also, and Gabe, you've said this too before, but just in general, writers from that region, almost very specifically Poland a lot of the time.
Love me some Central Eastern Europe.
Yeah, just a fan of the output of that region overall in literature. So
Shout out Bruno Schultz.
yeah, this is kind of it.
Hell yeah. That's as good as a reason as any, as far as I'm concerned.
Me too.
I'm Polish and Czech too, so this book really felt like
Is that really true?
going. Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know that. Have we talked
Right
about
on the
that?
You
border,
felt this
just like
deep
this
in your
book.
genes.
I did. It spoke to me in an otherworldly manner.
Damn, that's
Wow.
actually crazy, dude.
That's pretty cool.
So, Matt, you want to give a little bit of a cliff notes about what this book is about, the plot, etc.?
Yeah, sure. I don't know how to pronounce her last name, the main character.
Me either. Which is funny because
That's a
one of
running
the
joke.
running joke is that everyone pronounces her name incorrectly, which
Yeah.
we also would do if we attempted it.
There's a lot of naming stuff as a theme going on in the book, but I know her first name is Janina.
Janina. Okay, I'll give the last name a shot.
Yeah.
Duzhezhko.
That sounds good.
Janina
Duzhezhko.
Duzhezhko.
Something like that. It's not Duzhenko, which is what everyone thinks it is.
Right. Which is probably a joke about some name. That seems like more of a Polish thing.
Yeah.
That's the more common one that everyone wants it to be, and it's
Right,
not.
right. It's like if your last name was
Johnson, and they were like, it's Jeanson, not Johnson.
Yeah, exactly.
Or Johnston,
Yeah,
and you're
yeah.
just like, I was like, it's Johnson.
I was
All right,
going to say
it.
Jones and Jomes.
Jones.
Or like Corey and Jory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jory.
Okay.
Was that a Philip K. Dick name? Jory?
Yes, yeah.
Yes, it
Oh,
was,
yeah.
That was the ghost. The ghost.
The ghost that eats
Whatever.
people.
the fucking
Joker Corey.
The digital
Joker
ghost.
Corey.
So you shut up. The plot, I mean, it's a murder mystery with, a big twist that I definitely called in my own reading.
100%.
Pretty easily. And it's about this woman, Janina, who lives in this sort of like border sort of valley and plateau region of Poland on her own, and she's the caretaker of a bunch of these people's, what are essentially summer homes in this place that becomes completely like sort of frozen over and somewhat unhospitable and cold during the winter. And she's strange. She's super into astrology, and she's
Not
you don't
that
really
that's
get a lot of.
strange. Shout out to our astrology listeners.
Oh, true.
It is though. It's fine.
It's strange. It's crazy.
Well, she does emerge to
but
be
not really.
strange.
But she's deep into it. She's not like read the paper every day and be like, oh, this is fun. But
Yeah.
she's like deep into like the mathematics of charts and shit. And
She's like,
Right.
these historical events happened when Saturn was in retrograde, and Poland
she's
suffered
got-
from this, Sagittarius age or whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know
that's
anything
right.
about it. I don't,
The age of Aquarius. But she's on her own, and you don't really get a ton of biographical detail about her. She's just kind of like going about her life, and you're plopped right in sort of. She's like an older woman. I don't know if you actually get her exact age, so you can't do her chart. But these murders start to happen amongst this sort of rural community that's left during the winter, and sort of people wind up dead in the town, slowly over the course of like a year, and Janina's kind of orbiting that, and her and people that she knows in the town are trying to like solve the case.
they're doing the true crime podcast listener thing.
yeah.
Right.
So they're trying to get involved and figure out who really did it, and so
Yeah. And
Bashing the police force for not doing their job.
yes.
and there's a lot of, but I mean, like, that's sort of like, so that's sort of what is there to grip you and be like the narrative spine, I guess. I kind of like, but there's the book's kind of strange, and there's a lot of like asides and observations about like nature, and you sort of get into the headspace of this woman for the whole book, and then there's a big twist at the end, and the murder is revealed.
Perfect. Because her other big thing is animal rights, right? And sort of like
Yes.
nature in general, because her own sort of personal crusade is against the, apparently dominant like hunting culture in the area.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's another kind of strain to her personality that becomes increasingly relevant through the story. And she develops this theory that it's the animals that are taking revenge on the hunters by killing them all, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So she's kind of regarded as a little bit of a witch, kind of old crone type person, very eccentric in town, which
Kind of a
she's well
crank,
aware of.
town
Yeah.
crank, yeah.
A scary old person in the town, and she kind of uses it to her advantage, but also laments it. And it's just her hanging out. She's got some friends with quirky names, and they
Quirky
just sort
names
of
that
hang
she
out.
gives them.
Well, that was one of the first
I-
things that I noticed.
Sam, maybe we should start there.
Yeah.
There's like this she has this naming convention, and one of the big themes seems to me to be like, because people, like we said before, mispronounce her name all the time, which drives her up the wall. She also dislikes her first name in general.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of like capitalization and proper nouning of like random stuff that's not even fully consistent all the time. So there's just a lot of this like
She'll just randomly capitalize like animal or
ailment.
ailment or being or whatever.
Yeah. So yeah, that was one of the first things I noticed was just this this naming convention, and it felt to me because Janina's like super preoccupied, right, with like what she sees is a world that is not correct, right? Like some sort of rectification needs to happen, and one of the many small ways she tries to do that is this sort of rectification of names, I guess, like what people actually are, what people should be called. Call it, say it how it is, like that seems to be kind of the vibe there. Like it's just part of where all of this sort of general human error in this shitty world, it's a symptom of it, that we don't just like be like, so she gives people these nicknames that are like kind of mean sometimes and like whatever, but she claims to that they like sort of cut to the truth of them to her.
Which I didn't make that connection in reading it, but obviously I did because the naming is very important. But you use the phrase rectification of names, which is a Confucian idea in Eastern sort of linguistic philosophy, I guess, right? Like that that the name of a thing should sort of correctly express what the thing is. Which is interesting because like it got me thinking about, I hadn't made that Confucian connection until just now, but it got me thinking about, because we read Bunyan a couple weeks ago, and I just recently finished reading The Scarlet Letter by Hawthorne, video up on YouTube as of this recording, by the way.
Check it out.
And I was thinking of the ways in which the name, because in those books, right, a big thing is that the names are all very allegorical, right? Like in Bunyan, the names are like literally like Mr. Shits His Pants, and like Mr. like
Mrs.
Mr.
Wanton.
Yeah. And then in Hawthorne, it's not quite that obvious, but there are allegorical functions to the names of most of the characters in that book. And so I was trying to like think of the ways in which these names were serving that allegorical function, either for the text in general or for Janina within the text. So the first person that's murdered is named Bigfoot, right? And he has basically big feet.
He has big ass feet.
and they're like weirdly like black or something. They're like discolored or kind of nasty. Like Bigfoot needs to go see a podiatrist, like for sure.
Yeah.
Well, like I think she said that his foot kind of looked like a hand, like his big toe was kind of
like a claw foot,
oddly
too
separate.
Long.
It was too big, too long, too wide.
Yeah.
But
long-toed people.
There's all these other characters, like her other friend is named Oddball, and then her other friend is named Dizzy, and then there's another character that's named, and this is the one that really got me thinking down this road, because there's another one that's just named Good News.
Yeah.
And so I was just sort of trying to parse like the meaning of naming as a function in the story, because I also think that this ties into, as you brought up, Matt, the like seemingly random use of proper nounification of certain words with the capitals. And I was trying to make a connection there, figure out like what was going on, but I don't really know that I ever wound up getting anywhere.
It almost seemed like it was it was more of a personal choice by Janina and didn't serve like an allegorical function for me. It was just like her propensity to like elevate or like and think about things in her own personal way. Like, these mean things to me. This is that person's name to me, to my perspective only. So I think it seems different than the way that Bunyan was doing it.
And I think I do think it just, sorry, Matt, but I do think it's worth mentioning that the novel is written in the first person from Janina's perspective.
Well, I was just about to say, it's basically, I didn't put it further than just like we're inside her, mind, and it just struck me as one of these. The whole book just kind of felt like there's these gaps, right? Because obviously we can't have her perspective for the spoilers, right? Like for everything that goes on in her head.
Should we just? I mean, we might as well.
She's the killer.
She's the murderer.
She's the murderer. Yeah. But it felt to me like one of those. Like it was she. her personal corrective, because an important thing to tee up is this kind of what turns out to be like an underlying rage, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of fueled by her loneliness too, I would say.
100%.
Yes.
Existential,
it's like
sort of
loss of family, just kind of. By the end of the book, I felt just like entirely in her head, and you're wrapped up in the way she thinks about shit, and it just becomes, especially when you figure out that she's a murderer, it's just like, well, you look back on the whole book and you're like, this has been a very diabolical experience,
Yeah.
You're made to sympathize with somebody who's ultimately, arguably committed an evil, and I think, but that's also something that's supposed to be questioned in this, right? Like the twist obviously is like something, if you just engage with like a handful of things in a similar genre, not unexpected. But that's why I think, when things kind of do this with genre, it definitely seemed to me it wasn't really the murder mystery aspect that was like the actual like topic of the book that it wanted to address.
Oh, yeah. The blurbs, I just have to say the blurbs on this book are definitely bait and switch people. Like, like you could definitely see, like a fucking, wine mom in the airport, like be like, ooh, like a weird, like cool murder mystery about an old lady that I can relate to, and reading this and being like, what the fuck is this? Like, what did I spend $37 on at the airport?
Yeah. Which is kind of fun. I mean, I love the idea of like people getting tricked into reading about some Blakean Wicca mashup lady who's like an avenging spirit for all animal life that's been slaughtered. That's kind of sick.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Just
before we move on, just because I have to get it off my chest, can I just make a small like Mahler point about her being the murderer? And I never do this. Like, I'm never like, oh, plot hole. Or
I'm
like,
really excited for a Mahler
like
point
whatever.
by you. This is great.
But if you did, it would go something like this.
If I did, it would go, yeah, exactly. I was a little bit like, well, so the whole novel's in first person from her perspective. Who is she hiding the fact that she is the murderer from in the like diegetic world of the text, right? Like, why did we have to find out that she is the murderer essentially from other characters toward the very end of the book? Like, again, this is a very Mahler point, and maybe it's like a literary style question or something, and it's not going to affect my score or anything, but it did cross my mind that like, oh hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
I don't drink wine. I swear to God, I don't drink wine.
Yeah, I know. Matt's also covered in a blanket. We were trying to like disavow these personalities from the beginning, but that's just us. That's who we are.
Yeah.
But anyway, like I said, a dumb little bit of a Mahler point, but maybe something we're thinking about stylistically. Like, why write the book from the first person perspective if it's supposed to be this? Because like normally when something like that happens, right? Okay, let me just think about like other examples. When there's a first person perspective of a kind of a whodunit mystery, like anything, like
maybe
whatever.
like the new Batman movie with the Riddler. It's like kind of from. Sorry.
If the Riddler was the star of the movie,
well, but like,
and you didn't know he was planning to flood Gotham.
But like normally there's like some kind of explanation, like psychological, they had a mental break and they didn't remember doing these acts, or like whatever. And that's one of the arguments.
Yeah,
there is like a hint later, very late in the book, that she like saw herself under a different name or sign when she was doing these things. Like she references like Medea, I think, and one other character who is escaping me. So maybe that's what Tokarczuk is getting at with that. But anyway, I don't know. It was a little bit Mahler to me.
Well, yeah. When I read a description of this book before I read it, it said that like basically expect an unreliable narration. So, I guess that can be just summed up as a literary technique. But also, I mean, if her intention was to maybe troll on those wine drinking,
hey now,
airplane.
Matt literally has.
I
a glass
forgot.
of wine in his hand.
No, just like the airplane woman, you know, who wants to pick up a mystery novel. Maybe just a little bit of a trolling thing.
It could have been just the somewhat awkward necessity of, you know, even if you guessed it or whatever the fuck, like of painting someone's psychological profile before really just like being like, this is what happened. Because also there's a small, like, she doesn't kill the first person she finds dead.
True.
She is infected with the notion of being a murderer and like becoming a vessel, essentially, like after seeing the first corpse, which was just a genuine,
he choked on
death by accident. He choked on a deer bone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she had seen some deer earlier and sort of connected those dots. It was like, it was the deer getting revenge, and then she'd had some, you know, and then they set up all of this pre-existing shit with like how much she hates the fucking hunters, and there's this whole thing about these dogs she had that she keeps calling her little girls. And I don't even think it's clear that they're her dogs for a while. You wonder maybe if she had some kids that are dead or
I thought she
disowned her.
I thought she was talking about the deer in her yard for most of the book. When she,
I thought it was plants at one point. I thought it was like her flowers at one point. Yeah. So
anyway, like,
and maybe it's all of the above in a weird
very
way.
smaller point. But yeah, I mean, true. It could be all of the above in terms of like you said, the avenging nature angel, caring for all of these different sort of forms of life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I think mostly another big thing was just trying to create, like I said, that uncomfortable experience where you kind of you root for the quirky, baddie old lady. You know, she's the underdog. I guess physically, first of all, I don't know how old she is. I feel like she's exaggerating. I feel like she's like 65.
Yeah, I
was
was
gonna
going to
say
say
that.
like mid-60s or something like that. She's not like decrepit.
And she's tall, apparently. She was like a former what do they track and field, like
Hammer throw,
lady,
which becomes important,
which is how she's able to do what she's doing.
I will say, just from like an Agatha Christie, like dumb, like not
I
that
love it.
Not that
Yeah.
Agatha Christie is dumb, but Agatha Christie actually slaps. But just from a clever kind of like murder mystery perspective, the way she kills these people is actually really inventive and not something that I've ever seen before, which is that she hits them over the head with like a frozen ball of ice in a plastic bag.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's so clever, because it's just going to melt away and all you got to do is like just wash the bag or burn it or throw it out.
Well, as she says, you know, weird old ladies like her are always seen with just random crumpled plastic bags with shit in them. So she's like, it's perfect.
So for all you people look like trying to figure out how to murder somebody, there's a technique right there for you.
Well, didn't you guys ever talk with your friends about stabbing people with icicles and that being perfect too because it melts?
Mm-hmm.
I remember talking about that, brother.
I never did.
I did that. I had a conversation with my older sister where she was really like, we were at the dinner table and she was really adamant. She was like, you can kill someone with literally anything. And I was like 8 years old and I was like, dust. She was like, choke them. Pour dust in your mouth.
Miss Know-It-All, huh? With the
I was stumped after that one.
And this was
one
Paul's,
worm.
And this was Paul's first debate bro experience.
Yeah.
So yeah, I liked that. I mean, it's just I feel like Tokarczuk was. I think the bait and switch is just the fact that it's a murder mystery a little bit. I don't know what the tenor of her other stuff is. Apparently, this is something of a departure. I don't know. People who are more familiar were kind of mentioning that.
On the Spinecrackers Discord, which you can join if you join the Spinecrackers Patreon for as little as $2 a month.
As a mere few deer bones.
A pittance.
Yeah. So, you know, I don't know if this was apparently something a little bit different than what she normally did. But yeah, you know, like using a genre convention like to lure people in the way, like, I don't know. The thing that jumps to mind is like Twin Peaks stealing soap opera format to tell a story about like fucking, you know, something entirely different.
I would actually also throw in like Simenon into the mix, especially some of his hard novels where, something like The Strangers in the House, which is a murder mystery, right? Like similarly, but it's also, similarly to this book, it's basically who you thought did it, which is the case for all of Simenon's novels, or most of them. But it's preoccupied and concerned with so much more. Like in that novel, it's the reason that jumped to mind is that the main character in that novel is an old man who's sort of alone. He's very different circumstances. He's alone, rich in this enormous house with his kids, but some similar like existential themes and the sort of bait and switch of like a dramatic murder that is not the central sort of thrust of the novel.
Well, the other thing that obviously would like seem to be a big clue to, I don't know, the themes, the content, what's being tackled here is like the title is a line from Blake. Blake is mentioned all over the fucking place. She's quoting him.
I think he serves as the epigraph for every chapter, right?
Yeah, it's that. Yeah, epigraph of every chapter. Her friend Dizzy is a Blake translator, and there's a whole segment where they're translating a line into Polish. So that was the other avenue that I tried to go down. I have to admit that like I didn't really like I have some loose ideas about why Blake was so heavily featured. But yeah, maybe maybe it's like a fool's errand to be like, here's the answer. But like, especially for someone like Blake. Yeah.
I mean, the main connections, and you wound up reading the Marriage of Heaven and Hell, right, Matt, for this, or started?
Yeah, I read the Proverbs of Hell, which are mentioned, and I read Auguries of Innocence, which are two of the things quoted, and then I think Mental Traveler, and then some letter excerpts.
So you have way more probably that you could say about it than me. But what I know about Blake in brief, and I have not read much Blake at all, is he was sort of similarly concerned about the natural world broadly. And, he was a romantic or from that era. And so, was concerned about nature and nature's innocence, and it's sort of like as a symbol of purity. But also, of course, just in his personal life, like Blake saw visions, right? Blake talked a lot about, from a young age, seeing these religious, like sometimes very disturbing, visions and imagery. And I feel like that's a pretty clear analogy to Janina's obsession with astrology, and the way that she can feel like she can sort of touch the deeper picture or the divine or the whatever,
She also
also sees visions too. Yeah.
Oh yeah, true. I forgot about her mother and ancestors in the what is it, the boiler room?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then at the end, she's like trying to get to the boiler room to like be with them.
And then Innard, like she kills Innard, but then she also like has a vision about him trying to like reclaim his foxes.
Yes.
That's not real, and also she would know what happened to him because she killed him, but she still has this alternate view of things. So I just sort of saw her as kind of like, there's Dizzy, the guy who's kind of pointy-headedly translating and obsessed with Blake, and gets like a teaching job at the end of the book, I guess, like doing translation and being a Blake scholar. But ultimately, like, Janina is not to say that engaging with Blake makes you crazy, but she's sort of a Blakean type figure. Like, she'd be kind of more in line or cut from the same cloth in a way.
Dizzy was one of her, because she was also a teacher at one point. That's one of the few kind of biographical details we get about her, is the story of her as a teacher. And Dizzy was one of her former students, I think she mentions at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And before that, she was a bridge builder.
Right.
Yeah, so there is some background. There's like maybe a page and a half of it where she just goes into her background. She's a bridge builder, and she gets like injured in some way. And she
has
or she has ailments. She's constantly talking about her ailments.
This is the classic generic ailments, yeah.
Yeah, capital A, yeah. Which is completely unexplained, vague. She gets blisters and has like sort of a sun allergy. Her limbs hurt. She gets thrown into like fits of like exhaustion and weakness. But it also seems like it's tied, again, like this idea of like kind of mystics and like traditional or whatever, like people with like religious experiences being ill, generally, and kind of.
She definitely has big anchoress energy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're coining that.
Yeah.
Feel
There's
free to
some really,
take that
like-
all over.
Big anchoress.
Yeah.
I may have used that almost that exact phrase talking about Hester Prynne when I was talking about the Scarlet Letter today. But yeah.
It's just on your mind right now. It's okay.
Yeah.
There's
We're
a really
spreading it.
beautiful passage where she's talking about her ailments and talking about how like when she's feeling like particularly bad, she wants to like take off her body and become like a jellyfish person. No, you guys remember that? I didn't underline it. I thought I did, but I wanted to read that out. It was like so weirdly unique, and that's one thing about this book that I really enjoyed. Is just like she kind of goes off the deep end a lot and has really strange ways of writing about things that take something like generic old person ailment problems to a very different level. But yeah, she talks about her body being like a suit, and the only way she can feel better when she's in moments of pain is she takes off her bodysuit and just pretends she's like a jellyfish human who's like see through and floating around.
There are passages where she talks about being
I would love that.
being a bat.
Yeah,
And like there's a lot of
How do bats perceive us? And
which
like,
also
are we, like,
shout
that was
out,
a beautiful line too. Fuck, I wish I underlined that one.
shout out to Thomas Nagel. What is it like to be a bat? Philosophy.
Is that really?
Yeah, that's one of the most famous essays in contemporary philosophy.
there's a few messages or mentions of bats. There's a moment where she like sees bats in her crawl space or something, and then
It was in I think it's in one of the houses of the people that she's caretaking for.
oh yeah, and like she has this weird feeling that they could be looking at her. It just made me think that she's Polish older woman, joker-fied, sign-loving animal rights activist.
Well, she is doing a little eco-terrorism.
Yeah, legit.
I think like again, like she's she doesn't see ultimately like a difference in anything in the natural world from anything else in terms of it's like she's like acutely pained by like the distress of like a bug or a plant as much as like a human being, which is why the twist that she's got this divine justice thing and she ultimately murders people. Which like kind of undermines it. The other sort of contradiction in her character that I was noticing was like she's sort of this Blakean mystical person who's like you need to break your mind free from whatever stagnant waters breed reptiles of the mind, which is one of my favorite sort of Blake lines. This kind of like people are so hardened and don't see the interconnectedness of everything, but then at the same time she's so willing to chalk like her whole life and the truth of everything to astrology, which as we remember from Junger is just kind of like just another way to look for a sort of authority figure of a kind, and it feels very contradictory to like all the other stuff she was observing.
Oh, I have some takes on the astrology stuff in this book. I may reserve it for the Patreon only segment, but
Okay.
I'm trying to get into some Adorno talk because Adorno's famous essay "The Stars Down to Earth," where he basically says astrology is an expression of fascism. I want to talk about it, but
That'd be fun.
but
It did seem like a contradiction, though, right? A little bit to like other things she was observing and expressing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. I think certainly there's this sense of, rebellion, but also like fated. It's also very fatalistic, right? Everything is fucking.
It's what allows her to kill, essentially.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I just wanted to read a passage that sort of I feel like expresses some of her, at least her attitudes towards animals, not necessarily the astrology stuff. but this is from when she is being interviewed by the police, I think the first time, because she's brought down because she finds these, I think she finds the first two bodies, and so she's being interviewed as a witness. And so she's talking to this sort of indifferent police person who's dictating her, or not dictating, but writing down her kind of statement. This is on 104 to 105 in the translation that we have. Just look at the way those pulpits work. And the pulpits are essentially hunting perches that are out in
blinds.
Yeah, exactly. Just look at the way those pulpits work. It's evil. You have to call it by its proper name. It's cunning, treacherous, sophisticated evil. They build hay racks, scatter fresh apples and wheat to lure animals there, and once the creatures have become habituated, they shoot them in the head from their hiding place, from a pulpit. I began to say in a low tone, with my gaze fixed on the floor. I could sense that they were looking at me anxiously while carrying on with their work. I wish I knew animal script, I said. Signs in which I could write warnings for them. Don't go over there. That food is lethal. Keep away from the pulpits. They won't preach the gospel to you from there. You won't hear any good news over there. They won't promise you salvation after death. They won't take pity on your poor souls, for they say you haven't got souls. They don't see their brethren in you. They won't give you their blessing. The nastiest criminal has a soul, but not you, beautiful dear, nor you, boar, nor you, wild goose, nor you, pig, nor you, dog. Killing has become exempt from punishment, and as it goes unpunished, nobody notices it anymore. And as nobody notices it, it doesn't exist. When you walk past a shop window where large red chunks of butchered bodies are hanging on display, do you stop to wonder what it really is? You never think twice about it, do you? Or when you order a kebab or a chop, what are you actually getting? There's nothing shocking about it. Crime has come to be regarded as normal, everyday activity. Everyone commits it. That's just how the world would look if concentration camps became the norm. Nobody would see anything wrong with them. And I think, this is sort of I like this passage because it sort of walks the line.
It's like Morrissey.
Yeah, it is a little bit like, meat is murder, dude.
Yeah.
But it sort of walks the line between moments where you're like, yeah, damn, like that's true. Oh shit. And then also like, I feel like one of the things Tokarczuk does really well is walk the line with Janina between someone who's saying stuff that's like reasonable and that you can agree with, and then flies off into sometimes in the same sentence or a sentence later stuff that you're just like, okay, well that's a little bit wild. And I think that like literarily, I think this applies to the astrology stuff too, because reading it, she gets so in the weeds with it that like at some point you have to kind of get in Janina's head and be like, yeah, maybe it is the astrology. Like something is going on here. Like this is an astrological force at work. And I thought that was really well done.
Just a great profile of that kind of thinking too. You can create this weirdly enough, I was thinking of do you guys listen? You listen to Andrew Callahan talking to the fucking Q Viking or whatever?
Oh yeah.
Like
Q shaman,
sorry. But even in just random people that aren't even at that level, conspiratorial thinking, things like this, there's that moment, right, where they're like, you're like, yeah, like there's forces like subjugating us, and like this shit's unfair, and like there could be validity to some of these ancient observations, well, mystical stuff, and then that subtle leaving of like I don't know, like not validity, but just sort of like that just veering into dangerous
plausibility
territory from that. Plausibility, just like how did you make that connection? Whoa, like I think Tokarczuk did that super well with Janina, because you're mostly on her side, but she always veers a little bit too far with it.
Yes.
Well, and you especially see it when she starts writing to the police and mentions all the astrology in the letters to the police. You're like, at that point, you're like, yeah, I can no longer buy into what is going on in your head at all. You've taken it to a new extreme where.
Well,
I wonder if were you going to read something from it, Matt?
Yeah, I was just gonna on 24. There's was one of the first instances that made me go, where I was like, maybe it's Janina. like right out the gate. This 24 sort of in the middle starts with on the other hand.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, I felt great relief. Sometimes when one thinks more broadly, ignoring one's usual mental preferences, and considers instead the sum total of a person's deeds, person capitalized, one might conclude that their life is not a good thing for others. I think anyone would say I'm right about this. Just like a little, quick little like boop, like, like sure,
yeah, cool, cool, no doubt,
Just don't take that too far,
right?
Yeah.
Well, and also I think this sort of points to her general like existential orientation, which is our kind of insignificance in the face of the dictates of the stars and so on and so forth, right? But of course, like, throughout the text, I feel like in being in Janina's mind, you have to wonder how much of this is a defense mechanism against her own sadness and loneliness, right?
Yeah.
Like, because how much easier is it to bear those sorts of weights when you can convince yourself that it's all, quote unquote, part of the plan, right?
Exactly. Including your homicidal tendencies.
Yeah, yeah.
You're clean. Your conscience is clean. It's not you.
I also just had to think with the police letters, like I had to think of Kaczynski,
right.
and maybe that's something the Unabomber, right? And maybe that's something we can come back to in the Patreon, in more detail. But
a man who was like very correct about a lot, and then did the dumbest, like
we're canceled. We just got canceled as fuck.
And then did it the wrong way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. That's
essentially
that's exactly what it is. And he didn't. I don't think he ever wrote letters to the police, but he wrote letters to the people, included in like who he bombed. Right. So I was just thinking about, and obviously the kind of eco-terrorist, extremist position that Janina has, it just has to call Kaczynski to mind, I think.
And there's also just a connection to other true crime things too, I would say, of just like people that are involved in murders talking to the police, sending them clues and that kind of thing.
Yes.
Like, I just felt
Mr.
like from
Policeman.
the letters, like Zodiac type, cipher shit. But as soon as she started sending the letters, it seemed like I was just putting myself in the position of the police force, being like, maybe we should look into this woman.
Yeah.
Like this doesn't seem right.
Well, and it's another, because my wife and I do listen to quite a few true crime podcasts. If any true crime podcasts want to come on the show,
if there are any true crime podcasts out there, please let us know.
There are, and they are all way more famous than we are.
They are legion.
Yep.
Yeah.
But one of the sort of axioms of like true crime is that any person that goes out of their way to like involve themselves in an investigation is probably involved with the crime in some way, because it's almost like it's like a bear hug, right? Like if I get close enough to you and like you won't suspect me, I'm just gonna wrap myself around this thing.
Yeah.
But that's usually a sign that they're involved in some way.
Yeah. And yeah, and the police do kind of, they're looking at her cockeyed, but I think another just thing that is more sort of to a clue to Janina's general isolation and sadness is just, you're a quirk, you're on the way out, you're like an old woman, no one cares, no one sees you as anything but just at all, like you're just this old biddy living out in the woods, and no one's gonna take you seriously, and ultimately it's to the police's detriment, but also the police's ignorance of her, or like lack of ability to really imagine her as the murderer in some way, like just justified or like probably fueled some of her desire to do it in the first place. Like, no, I have an impact, like I'm here. Yeah. Basically.
It makes you want to read this passage about her loneliness that was really sad.
Do it.
I have the Kindle version, so I can't tell you what page it's on, but she's talking to Boros,
Yeah.
And he asked her, like, what have you done in life? Boros suddenly asked. This question was so unexpected that I instantly let myself be carried away by memories. They began to sail past my eyes, and typically for memories, everything in them seemed better, finer, and happier than in reality. It's strange, but we didn't say a word. For people of my age, the places that they truly loved and to which they once belonged are no longer there. The places of their childhood and youth have ceased to exist. The villages where they went on holiday, the parks with uncomfortable benches where their first loves blossomed, the cities, cafes, and houses of their past. And if their outer form has been preserved, it's all the more painful, like a shell with nothing inside it anymore. I have nowhere to return to. It's like a state of imprisonment. The walls of the cell are the horizon of what I can see. Beyond them exists a world that's alien to me and doesn't belong to me. Fucking sad.
That
motivating.
reminds me of the kind of like doomer meme line of like the world that you were raised to live in no longer exists. You know what I mean? Where
just Prison Planet.
Yeah, Prison Planet. Shout out. If Alex Jones wants to come on the podcast, we will have him. Don't make any mistake about that.
Yeah, corker of a guest for sure, no matter what we're talking about. Yeah, there is a lot made of prisons. That's another image that comes up. Your body, and your town, you know. And
I think just borders in general, right? Like just sort of just the whole Polish-Czech border thing is very significant.
Yeah.
And Janina likes to play around with that. But we're going to have to save all of that discussion, believe it or not, for the Patreon.
Are we seriously on the hour?
Believe it or not, we're getting pretty close. And it feels like we have, again, as always, barely scratched the surface in the allotted time.
I guess the only other thing that I wanted to mention here is like, another thing that I really liked about this was the explicitly just like made fun of preferred narrative of the media being probably the preferred narrative of most readers of crime fiction, which is like, and was probably the case, but nothing would have been done about it. It just happened incidentally. Was like how it does actually go all the way up to the top, and that every authority figure, every person with like a badge and some power in this little town was kind of colluding, but just for this sort of like hunting and bribing thing.
Yes.
And so there was like this whole other narrative.
The
where
priest, the police commissioner,
the police commandant, the local millionaire, all the way down to Bigfoot, who's
very
just some, like,
Jeffrey Epstein.
Hick. Yeah. So like there's this funny sub, sort of story going on where it does go all the way to the top, and it is like a conspiracy in a way. But it has nothing to do with what's going on in the story, and you're kind of made fun of it. It's like, this is what the media is hoping it is, even in this local town as it's reported.
That's a really good point.
The sort of vital core of it is something entirely else. And I just thought that was a great, true little observation.
Did this book predict QAnon?
No, if anything, Janina should be Q.
Janina would be Q, for sure. For sure. All right. Well, as we have referenced, we have a lot more to talk about, and that's all going to be on the Patreon, which you can get access to the full episodes of every book we talk about for as little as $2 a month. That also gets you access to our Discord, which is lively and lovely, and shout outs to the Discord.
Do yourself a flavor.
Do yourself a flavor. Get on the Discord. What else you got to do? Yeah, that. Whatever Paul's sound was.
What was your sound cue?
It wasn't a good one.
Okay.
You take another stab at it later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, with all that said, patreon.com/spinecrackers, youtube.com/spinecrackers, Instagram, Twitter, etc., etc.
Wow.
You're an eco-terrorist, Harry.
Harry's so multi-talented.
I know. Absolute just jack of all trades. So this is the segment of the show where we take the characters from the book we just read and put them in the respective Harry Potter houses, and it's called We Just Read Another Book, so you can't stop us from talking about Harry Potter, you gatekeeping motherfuckers.
Yeah. And here we go. And who are we even going to talk about aside from Janina?
I feel like we've only talked about Janina so far, and there's a lot of other characters in this book.
Yeah, there are actually a lot.
That we didn't even really get into, and so I guess we'll have to save that for Patreon.
Yeah, we can do a bonus housing round.
We
later.
we might have to, because we didn't talk about anybody else really.
Do you want to do the Scrabble then first, and then
Sure.
Because I'll start.
All right. So this is our favorite word from the book, basically. A good Scrabble word, a word we didn't know, something like that. We try to. We're an educative podcast at the end of the day.
Indeed.
Including for ourselves.
Oh, ideally. Yeah, so mine, I don't know if it counts because there's sort of like it's forbidden to use foreign words, correct? In Scrabble?
I think we'll give it a slide for this book, though.
It depends. Scrabble has actually surprisingly lax rules about stuff like that. So it depends.
So the one I chose is Hyleg, which is Hyleg. I think that's a pretty fun Scrabble word. And it means, it means the astrological position of the planets at the time of birth, or in Hellenistic astrology, the planet with the greatest essential dignity in 5 important natal chart positions. Yeah,
Nice.
Hyleg.
That's a good one. Paul?
Mine is trochaic,
Nice.
which is like what is the word? I'm going to pronounce it right. It consisting of or featuring trochees, which I think is how you pronounce it, which is like it's a poetry term. But I thought it's a good word to say in your mouth.
Nice.
Yeah,
trochaic.
it's nice. Good mouthfeel.
Trochaic.
Yeah.
Exceptional mouthfeel. Shout outs to any Bob's Burgers fans listening. My word was yes.
Crank that volume slightly.
My word is picnic, but spelled in a very different way.
I thought about that one too.
Pykanic. And this basically means a sort of stout, kind of a broad, girthy kind of dude.
So good.
Yeah, like yeah, exactly.
I want to call
Dad
someone a
bod
picnic.
type.
A snack.
It's like a body type. Yeah. Oh yeah, dude. I want to take you on a fucking picnic.
You're an absolute picnic. Paul,
there it is.
you fucking nailed that.
You're
one,
fucking.
Yeah,
Paul's
that was
dialing it
good.
in. Paul's dialing it in.
You will be such a fucking sharpshooter with that thing soon.
Yes. All right. Well, let's talk Harry Potter. I mean, maybe we should only do Janina just because we've been giving all of the other characters short shrift a little bit, and are I don't know. I mean, the other main character is probably Oddball and then Dizzy maybe.
They all seem pretty puffed out.
But we haven't talked about them at all.
Yeah, they all kind of help Janina escape.
I think Janina's bad Ravenclaw.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah.
I think
it's kind of spot on obvious.
I think that's pretty easy clap, actually.
It's like that phrase, her mind is so open her brain fell out of her ear.
Yes.
That's kind of what it feels like.
100%. And that's bad Ravenclaw.
And that's just bad Ravenclaw.
It's QAnon Ravenclaw.
Yeah, she's the type of Ravenclaw that could possibly be a Death Eater. Not all Death Eaters are Slytherins.
True.
Right.
True.
Probably.
And Voldemort is Alex Jones.
Imagine if Alex Jones played fucking Voldemort.
No, dude. Alex Jones is Snape. He's secretly good.
Oh, God. Canceled. Got double canceled this episode.
Yeah, I love the Unabomber and Alex Jones.
Listen, the Mudbloods, they're infiltrated the government and they have secret pedophile ring. I can't take it anymore. These fucking Mudbloods. Well, that only leaves one thing, which is final scores. And fuck.
Yes!
I was trying to sneak it in.
I could tell. I was waiting for it.
All right,
We've both been burned by that stupid, method of yours, Gabe. So we got it.
I know.
Yeah, you guys just have no
20
respect for the order of operations anymore. You just cut me off. It's fine. All right, fine. I'll go first. So final scores. This score may come out of left field a little bit because I didn't like this book that much. Actually, I know
Really?
we've been talking about it and had sort of generally positive things to say. I think it was interesting, and maybe I am suffering from the well documented phenomenon of high expectation, fatigue or whatever. And this author has been so hyped by the online book community recently, and everyone's just soy facing out about her new big fat book. And
Big fat book.
I'm the book, the big fat book. But this kind of didn't do it for me. Like, I thought there's some interesting stuff there that we've talked about and will continue to talk about. And also maybe I was the victim of the kind of blurb industrial complex, which is a whole nother thing that we could talk about as a standalone episode, I'm sure. That was like,
You got by Blurbs?
It's possible. I'm not sure. I don't really know how to articulate the ways in which this book just didn't really gel for me. I think that there's moments in the writing that are really beautiful and really well done. The prose overall didn't strike me as anything particularly special. And the story, I think, was, just... I'm trying to avoid sounding like a right winger right now and be like, oh, this is an SJW eco-feminist fucking tract or whatever. And we can talk about that maybe in the Patreon segment. And I don't feel that way, but I do sort of feel like it was a arguably harmful caricature of like the animal rights position, which maybe triggered me a little bit because I'm a vegetarian in my day-to-day life, and I think about animal rights quite a bit. And I don't know, like I read that this book has sort of been a galvanizing political force in Poland actually recently, and people have been sort of, since its release, and people have been carrying signs at protests and stuff with Janina's name on them and shit like that. So this is an active kind of Tokarczuk is a political actor in Poland.
Yeah, that's true.
But I just sort of didn't feel good about the way that the positions that Janina was advocating were depicted. And then that on top of the sort of pseudo-murder mystery that wasn't, I don't know, like something felt messy to me about this book that never, as I say, gelled. So anyway, without justifying myself to death here, I'm going to give it a 3.1, which is which again, like maybe is higher than you were expecting given that preamble. But
yeah, actually,
it's all fucking relative, because I liked this book more than the last book, but I gave the last book a 3. But then I also felt like maybe I feel like both of them deserved lower than that. So I don't fucking know.
All right.
It's okay.
It's
You
okay.
can be in a suspended state.
Yeah, it's super positional.
God, that's how I'm gonna describe every one of my scores now.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't collapse my waveform, bro.
Well, I don't know. I didn't read any of the blurbs about it really, so maybe I didn't suffer from that side of viewing it because I walked away with it thinking that Janina was supposed to be like kind of a deplorable character, and maybe that just points to people's reactions being not initially what she intended, but then you're saying that she is a political activist, so she may be buying into that interpretation. So I don't totally know, but when I read it, I was like, I was in the standpoint of more just like, this was a bad person. She didn't do the right thing. She was living in her own head and making these incredibly strange decisions, and she's a murderer and bad. But I really did like the writing a lot. I will say my dumb take for this is that when when Bigfoot was first killed in the beginning and he was being described as like potentially an actual Bigfoot, and then when I learned that that wasn't where the book was going, I was like, fuck.
That fucking owns.
You thought I
was super excited.
That'd be funny if it was like, what's that guy Tingle, the guy who does like Bigfoot fucked my ass and all those other books, like the Loch Ness Monster.
Tingle is a character from The Legend of Zelda.
I know that, but the Chuck Tingle or something like that?
Yeah, I think it is Chuck Tingle. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
but I actually thought it was actually a kind of I didn't think of it as being like starting to be corny or something. I thought it was going to be like kind of a weird, cool take on what if my neighbor was Bigfoot, and what if I just thought like her psyche was coming out.
That would have been sick.
Yeah, and with like no explanation about this amorphic being, But anyway, I mean, overall, I thought the writing was really good. I wasn't totally on board with like the twist. The M. Night Shyamalan type nature of the storytelling was a little bit like meh. But I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I think I'm right around where you though. But our scores are generally different, like the way I score things. So
I fucked up the last two scores. It's on me.
I think I'm at like a 3.45.
Nice. So yeah, I'm kind of with you guys. Weirdly though, I think I liked it more than it sounds like both of you may have. But I definitely got the impression that Janina was that this was. I didn't read Blurbs. I'd be curious to know what Tokarczuk's. I meant to look into it, but I just didn't. Like sort of prior political activism was about, and like what the tenor of that was and content, because that will ultimately, if it is sort of adjacent to Janina's, like change how I think about this. But
yeah,
I took her to be bad too, or at least just sort of complicated. And ultimately somebody who was confused and lonely and, used a bunch of kind of like a bunch of different thinkers and templates and shit to justify acting out something that seems to almost contradict her own perspective on the world. And like that she was just sort of, she was going a little nuts and her ailment was potentially psychotic in nature and all that kind of stuff. I thought it was a fun read. It just had that sort of murder mystery propulsion to it, which just always works, So it was like easygoing. Yeah, I thought it was okay. I just thought it was okay, and so I was going to give it a 3.27.
Nice. Oh shit, that was not the one I was going for. Sorry.
Yeah. A wetter fart.
Not as funny. Yeah. There's too many. There's too many of these freaking things.
Well, for those of you who want to hear the rest of this discussion, because now I've listening to the other two score speeches, I've worked myself into something of a frenzy, and I'm heated.
Oh, good.
not at you guys, but at the book. And if you want to hear that discussion, stick around for the Patreon-only version of the episode, which will likely go quite a bit longer. Patreon.com/Spinecrackers. We love you so much. Thank you for listening.
Yes.